Ronabo, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you give the exam? Networking exam?
Not not yet. Today up to 12 we have time, right?
Yes, 11:59 p.m.
Yes, I will give within that time.
Okay. Okay. And where are the rest of the people?
I don't know.
Okay. So let us wait for 2 to 3 more minutes and then we can start. Okay. Ayush, we will wait till 5:05. Huh? Let other people join and then we will start. Okay, let's start then. Just a second, I will share my screen. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the previous class, we have done till the dictionary. So we have completed dictionaries, and before that, we have completed lists as well as strings, and we have seen the basics of Python. Okay. So although we have done if then else, for loops and while loops in the previous classes, so we have shown you the glimpses of these things, but we have not gone into the details, right? So today we will try and get into the details of if else statements, for loops and while loops, and if time permits, we will move into functions. Okay. So In today's class, we'll start with the if-else statement. Okay. Now, obviously, we know what do we use if-else statement for. So, obviously, if-else statement when we use whenever we are working with conditions. Okay. So, whenever we are writing a program, if there are conditions and if we need to check for some conditions, we obviously need to use the if-else statements. Okay. There is one more statement called as elif, and we will cover that as well. Okay. So, whenever we are working with if-else statements, so generally we make the use of logical operators. Okay, logical operations of mathematics. Okay, so now what are the logical operations that are possible in the case of Python? So obviously we can have equals. So we can have a equal to b, and obviously we have discussed in the previous class as well that whenever we have a single equal to sign, it generally means initialization, right? Which means we are just storing a value into a variable. But whenever we are using conditions and whenever we are using equal to conditions, so obviously in that case we will use a double equal to sign only for the conditions, and just for the variable declaration, then we can use the single equal to sign. Also we can have the not equal to sign, which means we can have an exclamation mark before the equal to sign, and this exclamation mark means nothing but the not, the not symbol. Okay, so if a is not equal to b, so if I give exclamation mark and equal to, it means nothing but a is not equal to b. Okay, similarly if we have less than, so we can have a less than b. So less than is nothing but the starting angular bracket sign, right? Similarly, we can have less than equal to. So if we have the less than sign followed by the equal to sign, then we will say that it is nothing but the less than equal to sign. Okay. Similarly, as we have seen in the less than and less than equal to, we can have a greater than as well as we can have a greater than equal to operation. Okay. Now, obviously, these conditions can be used in several ways, and most commonly, these statements are used in the if statements and loops. Okay, so again today in today's class we will see we'll dive deep into the if else statements as well as into the looping conditions in Python. Okay. Now, so generally whenever we are writing a if statement is always written using the if keyword. Okay, now again if I see this example and if I just open my command prompt, and I hope it is visible to everyone, and if I just call Python, so obviously if I write Python, the Python shell will be invoked, right? So if I write a is equal to 33, so again you can see that we are using a single equal to, which means we are just having the variable declaration, right? Or variable initialization, right? So if you are writing a is equal to 33, which means we are trying to save 33, the value 33 in the variable called as a, right? And similarly, suppose we have b is equal to 200, right? And I will write a condition. So obviously if I'm writing a if condition, it will start with the if keyword, right? So I can write if b is greater than a, right? And if you remember, we said that whenever we are writing if conditions or we are writing loops, right? Or suppose we are writing anything or functions, for example. So whenever we are writing anything that involves declaring a scope, right? Then we will use the colon symbol. Okay. Now what's the scope? Scope means, if you remember in C or in C++ or in Java, what we used to do that whenever we are writing a if condition or a for loop, we used to give us opening curly bracket and a closing curly bracket. And whatever statements were inside this opening curly bracket and closing curly bracket, that statement would be executed only if the condition will be satisfied, right? Now these statements that were inside the opening curly bracket and closing curly bracket, this is called as the scope of the condition, right? Okay, so again, if it's a loop, we will call it a scope of a loop, right? If it's a function, we will call it a scope of a function, right? So similarly, in the case of Python, whenever we want to define a scope, since we are using a if statement here, so it's a condition. So whenever we want to define a scope, what we will do, we will use a colon, right? And after giving the enter, what we will do, we will just indent it to the right side by either 4 spaces or by either 6 spaces, if you remember this. We have already discussed this in the previous classes. So again, if I'm writing a condition here, so if I'm writing b is greater than a, and we will give a colon, and again if I press enter, I will define the scope. How will I define the scope? I will just write indent the statements with 4 spaces. So I will write 1, 2, 3, and 4 spaces, right? So what I will do, if this is true, I will print nothing but b is greater then A, like this. Okay. And if I just press enter, you can see that this program will be executed. Okay. So again, whenever we are writing the if statement, so obviously it will be using the if keyword. Okay. Okay. So in this example, okay, so we have seen this example, right? And similarly, we have seen the indentation process as well. So what we have done, so Python relies on indentation. So as we have discussed earlier, so Python will always rely on indentation. And what does indentation actually mean? It means white space at the beginning of a line. So again, you can see we have given white spaces at the beginning of the line. Okay. So it will always rely on indentation. And what does indentation means? It means nothing but the white space at the beginning of a line, right? And why this is used? This is used to define the scope in the code, right? Other programming languages often use curly brackets for this purpose, right? So again, as we discussed earlier, for C, C++, and Java, we'll use a curly bracket to define the scope. But in the case of Python, we will not use a curly bracket. We will use a colon, and instead we will use what? Indentation to the right side. Okay. Now, again, you can see in the error below, in the code snippet below, that if I do not give the indentation after the colon, and if I just print b is greater than a, we will get an error in this case. Okay, so we are not running that. You just try yourself. Again, if you try, you will again get an error. That is for sure. Okay. Now, so after we have done the if statement, we will come to the elif statement, right? Now, elif, what does it mean? The full form is nothing but else if. Okay. Now, the elif keyword in Python is the way of saying that if the previous condition is not true, then try this condition. Okay. So again, if I have a if statement before the elif statement, it means elif statement means that if the if condition statement is not true, then what should we do? That will be told by the elif statement. Okay. Now again, if I see this example, it will be much more clearer. So if I write, for example, a equal to 33, b is equal to 33, and if I write if b greater than a, I will give a colon, I will press enter, I will shift the code to the right side by 4 spaces, right? I've given 5 spaces, I guess. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So what will I write? If this condition satisfies, the code block should be printed as b is greater than a, right? And suppose if this code block is not satisfied, then what we will do? So again, elif statement, what does it mean? It will tell us what to do if the previous condition is not satisfied. Okay. So in this case, I will write elif. So again, whenever we are using elif, so again, if it has the if statement, right? So else if, so if will obviously have a condition, right? So again, we will declare a condition like, so if in the previous condition we have seen that b is greater than a, so we will print this. If that is not true, if b is not greater than a, then again we can write some other condition. So what condition we will write in this case? We can write, so if a is equal to b. So again, you can see that whenever we are using a single equal to, it means nothing but variable declaration or initialization. And whenever we are writing double equal to, it means nothing but the condition. Okay. So I will write if a is equal to b, and then again I will give a colon. Again, I will shift the code to the right side by 4 spaces. And in this case, I can write what? Print a and b are equal, like this. Okay. And now if I press enter, again, you can see that the if condition is not satisfied. So again, the if condition, if it is not satisfied, then again, we will move to the next condition, that is the elif condition. And in the elif condition, what we have seen that if a is equal to b, then we will print what? A and b are equal, and that is what we have printed in the output. Okay. So I hope I'm clear till this. Okay. Let me minimize this. Okay. Now let us move to the next slide. And again, apart from else, apart from if and elif, we will again have a else statement. Now, obviously, what does the else statement do? The else keyword catches anything which isn't caught by the preceding conditions. Okay. Now, again, if you see in the demo that we have done, so again, in the previous example, we can see that we have given the if statement, right? Now, using the elif statement, what we were saying that if the if statement is not true, then again we should have some condition. So that condition will be given by the elif statement, right? And again, if the if statement is not true, if the elif statement is not true, then there should be something else. Now everything else, so one condition was defined using the if statement, one condition was defined using the elif statement, and everything else other than those two conditions will be caught by the else statement. Okay. Now again, if I see this example, it will be much more clearer to you. Just a second. Okay. So again, if I write a is equal to 200 and b is equal to 33. So first condition I will give that if b is greater than a, then what we will write? We will just write indent it and we will write print b is greater, like this. Okay. So now if this is not true, then we can give another condition, and for that we will use the elif statement. So we will write elif, and again another condition we can give. What condition? We can write if elif a is equal to b, then what we can print? We can print what? A and b are equal. A and b are equal, like this. Okay. And if both of these conditions are not true, so everything else, every other condition apart from these two conditions will be caught using the else statement. So again, if we write the else statement, obviously we will not give any condition, because if these two conditions are not satisfied, then whatever be the condition, that will be caught by the else statement. So again, in the else statement, we will not give any condition. Just what we will do, we will just give the colon, and again we will press enter, and again we will write indented by 4 spaces. And in this case, what we can write? We can write print a is greater than b, like this. Okay. And again, if I press enter, you can see that in this case we have printed the last statement. Why? Because the first two conditions were not satisfied, and since the condition was something else, so that something else condition was caught by the else statement that we have written. Okay. Now again, in this in the PPT, if you look at the PPT, in the last example, you can see that we can also have a else without the elif condition. Okay. So again, it is not mandatory that if I'm writing a if condition, then it will be followed by a elif, right? It can happen that a if statement will be followed by a else statement. Okay. So it is not mandatory that a if statement will be followed always by a elif statement. Okay. So again, if I just uh, go to the previous statements and I press enter. So again, if I'm writing if b greater than a, so what I will print? I will print b is greater than a. So again, if I don't want to give the elif statement, if I want to give only the else statement, so again I can do this. I can write else. Again, I will write indented by 4 spaces, and again I will write what? Print b is not greater in this case. Okay. Just a second. Okay. Now again, if I press enter here, so you can see that the statement that was in the else condition has been satisfied, and we have printed the scope of the else statement, like that. Okay. I hope I'm clear till this. Okay. Okay. Just a second. Okay. Now, next we have a very important thing. So again, if you remember that we have seen said in the first class that whenever we are using Python, the emphasis is always on writing less lines of code compared to C, C++, and Java, right? So again, whenever we are using Python, we can write the if-else statement in a single statement, right? And what do we call that? We call that as shorthand if, right? Similarly, we can have something called as shorthand if-else, right? Now we will see them one by one. Okay. So first, let us understand that what is a shorthand if. Okay. Now again, if you just say that a is equal to, for example, 200 and b is equal to, for example, 33, right? So what I can do, I can write if a greater than b, right, colon. So instead of giving a space, instead of giving a instead of pressing the enter key and then indenting the scope, what we can do, we can write the scope in the same line. Okay. So in this case, if a is greater than b, we will give a colon. We will not press enter, but what we will do, we will just write the scope in the same line. So what we can write print a is greater than B, right? And again, if I press enter, you can see that it will be printed. Okay. So this is called as nothing but a shorthand if. So which means we do not, it is not mandatory to press the enter sign and then define the scope. So what we can do is we can just write the scope in the same line of the if statement. Okay. So similarly, we will have something called as a shorthand if else, right? Now this is a bit different, and let us understand how. So again, if I see this example, let us see this example. So if I write a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 330 like this, right? So in this scenario, what we will do, first we will write the scope of the if statement, right? So what is the scope of the if statement? So in this scenario, what is the program? The program is to print which number is greater. Okay. So for first and foremost, I will give a if condition, that if, suppose I can say if a is greater than b, right? In the previous scenario, we have seen that we will use a colon and then we will write the scope. But in this scenario, whenever we are using a if and else statement at the same time, and we are writing in the shorthand, so what we will do, so before this condition, if a greater than b, we will write the scope for this statement. Which means if a is actually greater than b, which means if a is greater than b, if this condition is satisfied, then whatever be the scope of this satisfied condition, we will write it before this condition, right? So what we will write, so if this is satisfied, we will write what, print a is greater, like this. Okay, I hope you can get this, what we are doing. So we will give the if statement. So whatever be the condition, if that condition is satisfied, we will obviously have a scope. Whatever be the scope, we will write it before the if statement. Okay. So obviously, if a is greater than b, then the condition should be what, that a is greater. So this print a is greater, we will write it before the if statement, right? And the else part, what we will do, so we will just write the else part after this. So else, what we will do, we will print nothing but b is greater, like this. Okay. And again, if I press enter, you can see that b is greater. Okay. So whenever we are having only if statement, then the shorthand writing the shorthand rules are something different. And if I have a if else uh, or whenever we have a if else statement, so in that case, if you're writing the whole thing in shorthand, then the rule is something different. Okay. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Again, using the same method, we can use two else statements as well, right? So in the last example, again, if I just show you in the show you the demo, so it will be a is equal to, for example, 330, and b is equal to, for example, 330, right? And so first and foremost, I will write the if condition. So I will write if what's the condition, a is greater than b, right? So if this condition is satisfied, what will be the scope? Whatever be the scope, we will write it before the if statement, right? So obviously in this case, the scope will be printing a is greater, like this. Okay, right? So again, it will follow by else statement. So what will I do? I will write else. Okay, so what will be the else statement? I can write what, print uh, uh, I can write a is equal to b, right? So again, I can do this. But again, this is suppose I'm saying that this print statement is nothing but a scope, right? So again, if this is scope, so obviously this should be followed by a condition, right? So when will I write this? When will I write a is equal to b? If a is equal to b, right? If not, then what we will do? We will write else, and we will write what? Print b is greater, like this. Okay. And again, if I press enter, you can see that it is nothing but a is equal to b. Okay. I hope I have made myself clear that how do we write a shorthand if and if else statement, and these two are something a bit different than each other, right?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay. Okay, let us move to the next slide. Okay, again, there are two very important keywords that we need to understand. one is the AND statement, and one is a OR statement. Now these are actually very simple. So obviously AND means nothing but, which means if we are checking two conditions at the same time, then we can write and again if we are checking that if one condition satisfies out of these two conditions, then we will go to the scope. So in that case we will use the OR statement, right? Again, let us see two small demos, it will be much more clearer. So again, if I write if A is equal to 200, for example, right, and B is equal to, for example, I can write 33, and C is equal to, for example, 500. So I can write if A is greater than B and C is greater than A, right? So which means in this scenario, if you can see that is A greater than B, yes it is, and is C greater than A, yes it is, right? Which means if both these conditions satisfy, then only I will go to the scope. If any one of these are satisfying, one is not satisfying, we will not go to the scope. So that is the function of the AND statement, right? So in this case, we can see that both the conditions are satisfying at the same time. And if that happens, what we will do, we will go to the scope. How do we define a scope? We will just give 4 spaces, we will write indent the scope, and we will write what? Print. What do we print? Both conditions are true. Like this. Okay. So you can see that both the conditions are true. Okay. Now again, if I write the same thing, so if A is greater than B or A is greater than C. So in this case, you can see that A is actually greater than B. But in this case, you can also see that actually A is not greater than C. But we are using the OR keyword here. And what does the OR keyword do? It says that out of these two conditions, whatever I have written, if any one of them are true, I will go to the scope. Okay. So what will I write in the scope? I can write what? I can write print at least one condition is true. Like this. And again, you can see that it is printing. Okay. So these are actually very simple examples, but again, these are very heavyweight examples, right? So generally, whenever we do our day-to-day programmings, whenever we are writing rules for large data sets, obviously these rules will include more than one conditions. And again, whenever it includes more than one condition, this and or statements actually they become very useful. Okay. Okay. So again, whenever we are writing the if-else statement, so we can use something called as a nested if. Now, obviously, what do we mean by nested? It means nothing but that if you have if statements within a if statement, we call it nothing but the nested if statements. Okay. So again, if I say take a example and let us run this example, it would be much more clearer to you. Okay. So suppose we write x equal to 41, right? So I will write if x is greater than 10, right? I will give the scope. I will write print suppose okay above 10, like this. Okay. And again, after this print statement, I can again write a if statement like this. So again, I can write if x is greater than 20. So again, what can I write? I can write okay, I can write x is also above 20, like this. Okay. And again, for this if statement, again I can write a else statement like this. Okay. And in this else statement, what can I do? I can write print x is not above 20, like this. Okay. So if I just press enter, okay, I've made a spelling mistake. Anyways, so again you can understand what is happening. So again, inside one if statement, I am just executing another if statement, another if else statement, like this. Okay. So again, if I can do this, it is called nothing but the nested if statement. Okay. Now, these examples are actually very simple. So again, if you have basic knowledge of C and C++ and Java, I guess you will be able to understand these kind of things. Okay. Anyways, let us move to the next example. So again, a very important statement in the case of Python is the pass statement. Okay. Now, what does the pass statement actually do? Let us understand. Now, if statements cannot be empty, but if you for some reason have an if statement with no content, put in the pass statement to avoid getting an error. Okay. Now again, uh, uh, okay, in this example, pass will not be much more clearer to you, because whenever we will do the loops actually, then again the pass statement will be much more helpful or much more useful for this case. So what does a pass actually mean? It means that if b is greater than a, then it should be followed by some scope, it should be followed by some statements, right? Like printing a statement, or a nested if statement, these kind of things. But again, if I don't give any statement after this, let us see what happens. So if I write a is equal to 33, and if I write b is equal to 200 like this, and if I write if b is greater than a, and I give a colon, I press enter, and I don't give anything, right? You can see that there is an error. Again, you can say that again, sir, you can give the indentation and then we can see whether there is error or not. So again, if I just write enter, and if I give the indentation, if I give 4 spaces, and then again it will be the same thing, right? To again, to avoid getting error in this scenario, what we can do, we can write this, and what we can write, we can give the indentation, and just we can write a past it like this. So again, in this case, we will not get an error, right? Again, whenever we will do the loops, it will be much more clearer to you that how we can use the pass statement. Okay, so I hope pass statement for the if else is clear to you. Okay, anyways, let us move to the next slide. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of the basic if else statements, the basic descriptions of the if else statements. How do we use it? What are the various keywords that we can use, and how do we use nested ifs and those kind of things. Okay. Now again, whenever we will move to the higher dimensions of Python programming, uh, in functions, or whenever we will do tuples, or whenever we will go for the object oriented programming, then again it will be much more clearer to you. Okay. Now, uh, so if I come to the loops in the case of Python, there are two types of loops in the case of Python. One is a for loop and one is a while loop. Do while loop, by definition, it is not possible. But again, using some tweaks, we can do it. And if time permits, then we will show you how we can write a do while loop. Okay. But just remember that in the case of Python, by default, there is no do while loop, but there is only a while loop as well as only a for loop. Okay. Now, so whenever we are writing a while loop in the case of Python, so again, if you just see the first statement here, so with the while loop, we can execute a set of statements as long as a condition is true. Okay. So again, if I just look into this example, if I write I is equal to 1, for example, right? And suppose I write while I is less than 6. Okay. So what I can do, I can write what? I can write print of I. And after this, what I can do, I can write I plus equal to 1, right? Now, what I'm actually doing in this case? So initially, I will be acting as the iterator in this case, right? So obviously, first and foremost, we will just initialize the value of I with some value, okay? So in this case, we have initialized the value of I with 1, okay? Now, what we are doing is, we are saying that if the value of I is equal to 1, I will come to the next statement, the while statement, and I will check, is the value of I less than 6? So I will find out that yes, it is less than 6, right? If it is less than 6, so again, we can see that there is a colon. And obviously, if there is a colon, which means there should be a scope, which means if this condition is true, I will go to the scope and I will execute the statements, right? So if the value of I is equal to 1, and if 1 is less than 6, yes, it is, we will come to the next statement in the scope. What's the next statement? We are saying that we will print the value of I, right? And after printing the value of I, what we will do, we will just increment the value of I with 1, which means now the value of I will become 2. So whenever the value of I becomes 2, again, I will go back to the start of the scope, right? What's the start of the scope? It's the statement, right? It's the condition. Now, again, I will check the value of I is equal to 2. Is the value of 2 less than 6? Yes, it is. So what I will do, I will come back to the scope. I will print the value of I is equal to 2, right? Then again, what I will do, I will just increment the value of I to 3. Again, I will go back, I will check, is 3 less than 6? Yes, it is. Print 3, increment 3, it will become 4. Go back, check 4 is less than 6. Yes, it is. Come down. Uh, uh, just a second. No need to give the attendance here. We will just provide the Google form link, and then you can give the attendance there. Okay. Okay. So I hope it is clear that how this loop is actually working, right? Now, which
Yes,
means,
sir.
okay. So which means whenever the value of I becomes 6 actually, so again we will go back to the loop. It will check, is 6 less than 6? No, it is not, which means this condition will not be satisfied then. And again, I will not go inside the scope. What I will do, I will just skip the scope and go to the next line. What's the next line? Nothing. Okay. So I will just end the program. So again, if I just print this, if I just, you can see that it is printing from 1 to 5. Okay. Just let us check. Sir, is it possible to show using ID? What ID? Which ID? 2
Sir, any that can save project files.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, so with Python, there is an ID that comes and that is called as IDLE. But in that scenario, that you will not be able to save project files. So what I can do, the most popular ID after IDLE nowadays, after PyCharm, PyCharm is now has become obsolete. So nowadays, the ID that actually we are using, so it is known as VS Code, right? So what we can do is, suppose, so my screen is visible, right? Okay. So if I go to the desktop, is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
Yes. Tell me. Okay, it is visible. Okay, anyways. So if I just create a new folder and suppose I write, suppose I give the name as Python projects, like this. Okay. And I will just go into this folder. Okay. Now what I can do is I can just right click here, right? I can open the terminal. I have Windows terminal installed. If not, if you don't have it installed, so what I can do, I can go to the command prompt. I will just write exit here, just a second. Okay. So I will just move to my desktop like this. Okay. And inside the desktop, I have a folder called as Python projects, like this. I will press enter, right? And from this, what I can do, I can write code dot. Code dot means what? Open code inside this folder. What is code? It is nothing but the visual code, right? Like this. Okay. And in the visual code, what I can do is, suppose I am inside the Python projects folder, right? So what I can do is I can just click on the new file icon, right? I can give the name as test.py, like this. Okay. And inside this, what I can do, I can write a is equal to, for example, 200, b is for example 33. If a is greater than b, so in this case you can see I do not have to give the spaces by manually. If I just press enter, it will automatically give the space. And what I can do, I can write print a is, sorry, a is greater. Okay. I will save this, and what I will do, I will just go to the run option in the right hand side. So you can see there is a play button. So if I just click on this, again you can see that it will print the statement. Okay. So this is the ID that you can use, that is called as VS Code. Again, you can use other as well. You can use PyCharm, that is very popular. If you are using MacBooks, you can use um, Xcodes if possible, right? If you're using Linux, no need to do these kind of things. Just open Sublime Text and do it. Okay. Am I clear? 2 in 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let us move back to the command prompt, because actually, see, I can show in this, but actually I do not have an option to, zoom this. So again, I will have to go to the view, and then again, I will have to zoom everything. So that is the problem actually. Terminal, it's very easy. Why? Because we can zoom it, right? Okay. So I will just close this and I will go back to the terminal. Okay, so not only terminal, there is another thing called as terminal for Windows. This is a command prompt. This is terminal for Windows. So in this also you can do that. What's the biggest benefit of this? That inside this terminal we can have everything. We can have the Windows PowerShell. We can have the command prompt. We can have Ubuntu as well. Now why Ubuntu? Because we are using WSL in this case, right? What is WSL? It is Windows subsystem for Linux, right? So obviously for this WSL shell, I have used Ubuntu shell. Now if I just click on Ubuntu, this is nothing but the Ubuntu. Okay, so how do I say it's a Ubuntu? If I just write cd and if I write who am I, again you can see that I can print the Linux statements, right? Apart from this, what we can do, since we have installed Ubuntu in WSL, we have the Ubuntu shell, standalone shell as well. Again, using this also we can do it. Okay. Again, if I write Python, since this is a Linux installation, so again I will have to write Python 3. Why? Because Python will again contain two versions, Python 2 as well as Python 3. Okay. Am I clear, Tuinadri? I have shown you everything.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Okay, anyways, let me close this. Where were we? Okay, just let me clear this. So how do we write clear in this case? CLR? Oh, no, CLS. Okay, yes. Okay. And we will be back to Python. Okay, let us go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Just a second, let me drink some water. Okay. So we have seen the first example. Now, obviously, there are certain important points that we need to remember. What are the points? So the first important point is we should remember to increment the value of I. So as we have seen in the last statement of the scope, we are obviously incrementing the value of I, because if we do not do that, the loop will continue forever. Okay. Now, obviously, we need some condition to break the loop, and that's the reason why we are incrementing the value of I every time the scope runs. Okay. So obviously we have to remember to increment the value of I, or else the loop will continue forever. Okay, so that's the first condition. The second condition is the while loop requires relevant variables to be ready. So in this example, we need to define the indexing variable I, which is set to 1. Right now, obviously, we have said that what is the function of I? I is nothing but it will act as the iterator, right? So obviously, whenever we are using a loop, obviously, to run the loop, we need to have a iterator variable set, right? So in this example, we have set the value of set the indexing variable as I. Okay. Again, so suppose we are using a loop, right? There's a very important statement called as the break statement. Now, what does the break statement actually do? So with the break statement, we can stop the loop even if the while condition is true, right? Which means if I just see this example, so I is equal to 1, for example, I will write the same thing while I is less than 6, right? What I will do, I will print I, okay? And suppose I'm saying that whenever after incrementing with the value of I is equal to 3, right? What I will do, I will just break out from the scope, okay? And again, I can print what? I can write I plus equal to 1, right? Which means whenever the value of I will be equal to 3, the condition will be satisfied, which means I will move inside the scope. But again, inside the scope, I will find out a if statement, which says that if the value of I is equal to 3, what I will do is I will just break out of the condition, right? Let the condition be true, but still, if I have a break statement inside the condition, what I will do, I will just break out of the condition, break out of the scope. Okay. So which means if I just press enter on this, again you can see that it will print till 3. So whenever the value of I becomes 3, it will go inside the loop. Inside the loop, it will find out that there is if statement, and obviously it will be satisfied. And again, since there's a break statement, what I will do, I will just come out of the loop. Right? I hope it is clear to everyone till this. Okay. So
Yes, sir, clear.
okay. So again, as we have the break statement, we also have a continue statement. Now, what does the continue statement actually do? So with the continue statement, we can stop the current iteration and continue with the next. Okay. Now let us see this example. It will be much more clearer to you. So let us say I is equal to 0 in this case. And suppose I can say while I is less than 6, what I can do, I can write I plus equal to 1, right? And again, if I write if I equals to 3, I can write what continue like this. Okay, and what I can do, I can print I. Now again, whenever I run this example, it will be clear to you what is actually happening. So if I just run this, did you understand what happened? Anyone who can explain what happened?
Sir, 1 second, sir.
Uh-huh.
Sir, first I is 0.
Mm-hmm.
Then also I less than 6 is satisfied.
Right.
So I becomes plus equal
1.
to 1. So I becomes 1.
Yes.
I is not 3. So 1 is printed.
Mhm.
Okay. Then the same happens. The next
So I is
iteration becomes 2.
so I is not 3, which means I will print I. I will not go into the if statement.
But when I is 3,
Yes.
continue means it goes to the next iteration of the loop. So
Right.
print I is not printed. In
Right.
next iteration I becomes 4. Then
Right.
it is again printed.
Exactly. Which means if I just want to make a pass, right? If you remember pass in the previous statement, whenever we were doing pass in the if else. So if I want to do a pass inside a loop, so what I can do, I can use a continue statement. Now, what will the continue statement actually do? It will just go inside the loop. If the condition is satisfied, it will just skip that iteration and it will just tell the loop that, okay, skip this iteration and let us go to the next iteration. What's the next iteration in this case? It will be 4 and we are printing from 4. We have just skipped 3 by using the continue statement. Okay. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay. Again, we can have a else statement as well inside the loop. So again, let us see this example. So I is equal to 1 and I can write while I is less than 6. What we can do, we can print the value of I and we can write I plus equal to 1. Okay. Again, what we can do, we can write else print what I is no longer less than 6. Okay, so again this example will be self explanatory. Just let us run this. Right, again you can understand what is happening, right? So obviously with the while statement we are actually using a condition, and again if this condition we need an else statement for this condition, again we can write a else statement like this. Okay, let us see in the chat box what happened. Okay, Budhaditya, no need to give the attendance here. We will provide a form. Okay, anyways. Okay, so let us move to the next slide. Okay. So again, we will move to the for loops now. It's already 5:49. Just a second. Okay, we will do some very easy examples. The examples that we have done earlier. What happened? What's the chat? Again, Mananjay. Uh, people are coming, they're giving the attendance and they're leaving, and then they're leaving the Zoom meeting. Actually, you know what happens, that after the Zoom meeting happens, just a sec, it's already 5:49. Okay, so if time permits, we will do some slides of for loop, but let me tell you what happens actually. See, generally you come to the Zoom meeting and you give the attendance, and generally what you do, you leave the Zoom meeting, right? So you can you understand that since it's Zoom, your attendance will be recorded since you are giving that in inside the chat box. But let me tell you what happens. Just a second. If I just open this, if I go to data, IEM, placement class, attendance report, just a second. So your previous class was on 9th, right? Okay, so 9/5, yes. Okay, so let us open this. Let's just check what happens. Okay. So if I just okay. So this is my name. Fine. I'm using this account of Tufan sir. That is why it is written Tufan sir. Anyways. So anyone, for example, acha, who are present? Let us see who are present. Orunabo is your name here. Orunabo, can you see it?
Yes, sir. Row number 29.
Roll 20 in Orunabo. Yes. Okay. So obviously, on the 9th, Orunabo, you were in the meeting for 54 minutes. All right. So obviously that will count as attendance, right? Since we had the class for 60 minutes, you were there for
Yes, sir.
54 minutes. So obviously that will count as attendance. Now, see Anushka, what Anushka did. Anushka came, she stayed for 1 minute. I hope she gave the attendance in the chat box, and might be she left after that. And she might have imagined that, okay, since I've given the attendance in the chat box, my attendance would have been recorded. But again, you can see that Anushka was there in the meeting for 1 minute only. So what do you think? Will the placement cell give her the attendance? No. You can see Prince. He was there for 6 minutes. Akanksha, she was there for 5 minutes. Right? Similarly, Nilesh, 3 minutes. Saurav Kumar, 2 minutes. Right? Boshaki, 8 minutes. 20 minutes, 24 minutes. In a class of 60 minutes, if you stay for less than 35-40 minutes, that will not count as an attendance. So again, if you come, you just come to the Zoom meeting, you give your attendance in the chat box, you go away, that will not count as an attendance. Okay, I hope I made myself clear. See, no one will show you these kind of things. Okay, why I'm showing you? Because obviously I like to be transparent, and obviously you should know that how your attendance is actually calculated.
Sir,
Tell me.
Sir, actually, for today we did not attend the class in time because we were told that there will be another schedule that will be shared to us. And yesterday there was no class. It is told in the placement class, sir. I can
Friday.
Yes, sir. On Friday it's told, and we were today we got late, sir, because we did not know that today we have the class.
No, you were said that on Friday there was a message in the placement group that on Saturday there will be no classes. It was never said that on Sunday there will be no classes.
Sir, we did not know. Sorry, sir. So I joined late, sir, today.
No, that is fine. See, that is fine with me. Because see, with this attendance, I will not give you any CA marks, right? I will not give you any internal marks. But
sir,
still,
we missed the part that we needed to know. Yes, that's why I'm saying.
But still, you need to understand that how the attendance is actually calculated, right? You might say later that, yes, I've done the class, but still my attendance is not there. This is why it is not there, right? So this report we have to submit to the placement cell every day after the class. Okay, got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just try to, whenever you enter the class, if you don't like the class, don't enter, no issues. If you have entered the class and if you want to get the attendance, just be in the class for 35 to 40 minutes. Okay, just switch on your laptops, go to sleep, not an issue, right? But if you want your attendance to be counted, be in the class for 35 to 40 minutes at least. Okay, I hope I'm clear. Okay, anyways. So, acha, it's already 5:54. So, should we continue or should we call it a day? Your call. What should we do?
Whatever you want.
I I want to continue for more.
We have joined late, so little bit if you can just recap.
So, should I continue forward or should I continue? Should I go backwards?
So backwards a bit because we did not attend on time.
So we were see, I cannot go to the whole slides. You know, if you have any issues still now, just tell me, I can solve it. Any issues till now? Okay, do one thing. See, I will always post the slides in the Google Classroom, right? As well as I will, what I will do, I will post the live video lecture as well in the Google Classroom. So you go to the slides, go to the video, just see it, and in the next class, if you face any problems with this class, again you can ask in the next class, and then we can start with the new topic. Okay.
Okay, sir. Then you can move forward.
Okay. See, it's already 5:55. No point in moving forward. Again, if I go to the for loops, just I will, what I can do, I can cover 2 slides. Okay. Anyways, if I go to the for loop, obviously we understand that for loop is very similar to the while loop, but again the syntax is a bit different. And again, if you see the first statement, it is written that a for loop is used for iterating over a sequence, right? And what can be the sequence? That can either be a list or a tuple, a dictionary, a set, or a string. Okay. So again, for the case of strings, for the case of dictionaries, for the case of lists, we have already seen some examples, but still, let us dive deeper. Okay. So again, this is less like the for keyword in other programming languages and works more like an iterator method as found in other object-oriented programming languages. Now, what is the meaning of this? You will understand it better whenever we will do the object-oriented programming in the case of Python. Okay, so let us leave this as of now. Now, again, with the for loop, what we can do, we can execute a set of statements once for each item in a list, tuple, set, etc. So again, we have seen this example, but still, let us see the demo. It would be much more clearer. So again, if I have a list called as fruits, and if I have suppose 3 elements like apple, banana, and again, if I have cherry like this. So what I can do with the for loop? So I can write a for loop like this. I will define the iterator. So in this case, let us say that the iterator is x. And what I can say, I can write for x in fruits. So obviously x, whenever the loop will execute, x will first go to apple, then it will go to banana, and then it will go to cherry, and so on, right? So obviously, if this is if I write this, obviously I will give a colon statement like this. And since we have defined a scope, how do we define a scope? We will just press enter. We will give 4 spaces, which means I will write indent the statements of the scope. And what I will do, I will print what? The x. What is x? X is nothing but the iterator in this case. So again, if I press enter, you can see that the value of x will change with execution of the loop, which means the value of x first will go to the first element of this list, it will go to the second element of the list, and last it will go to the third element. After that, the list will end. The x will not go anywhere else. It will just come out of the condition and it will end the program. Okay. I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay. Again, the for loop does not require an indexing variable to set beforehand. So again, why we have written this? Because we want to continue. We want to compare this with the while loop. So again, in the case of while loop, what happened? Initially, we have to define an indexing variable called as I or a or a b, right? And which was actually acting as the iterator, and that iterator was actually used to check for the condition. But again, in the case of for loop, we do not require to explicitly write an indexing variable beforehand, right? We can just write the indexing variable in the for loop itself. Okay. Okay. Next slide. So again, using the for loop, what we can do, we can loop through a string, right? So again, we have seen this example previously, but still, if I have a string called as banana, so what I can do, I can write for x in. So since it's a string, I will use a opening and a closing inverted comma. I can write banana like this, right? And again, if I print x, so obviously it will loop through all the characters of the word banana. So if I write print x, and again, if I press enter, you can see that it is looping through all the characters of the word banana. Okay. Now again, we can have a break statement here as well. Now, if you remember what is the function of a break statement in the case of while loop, again, if we just write this demo, I will be able to understand what is the actual function of a break statement. So again, if I just see this demo very quickly, if I have the list as fruits, and suppose if I have apple, we have banana, and suppose we have cherry, just a sec, cherry like this. And again, I can write for x in fruits, which means x will iterate over all the elements of the list fruits. So what I will do, I will write print of x, right? And I'll write that if x equals to banana, which means whenever the loop will move to the second element, and whenever the iterator will become banana in this case. So if it's a banana, what I will do, I will write a if statement. I will again define the scope by moving to the right 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. If it is banana, what I will do, I can write break, which means it will print in this case. In this case, it will do what? It will just go to apple. It will print apple. It will go to banana before printing banana. It will print banana before going to cherry, it will check whether it's a banana or not. If it's a banana, what it will do, it will come out of the loop. So if I just press enter, again, you can see that it will print apple, it will print banana. But again, since the condition of if is satisfied, it will just break out of the loop and it will not go to cherry. Okay, I hope it is clear till this. Yes, yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So it's already 6:01. I guess we should stop today. Okay, before you leave, just a sec. I will stop sharing first. And in the chat box, what I will do, I will just give you the attendance form. Okay. Still, we take this attendance. Why? Because many of you have actually remain 5 to 6 minutes in the meetings, but still we take this. Why? Because we think that you shouldn't be penalized, right? So still we take this attendance. So again, go to this link, give the attendance, right? I hope everyone has got the link in the chat box.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so if you have any issues, stay back. If you don't have any issues, you can leave the meeting, go and fill up the attendance form. Okay. And also, you also have the networking exams that is valid till 11:59 today. So just go and give that as well. Okay. Okay. Thank you.